And it was just about, making sure, avoiding the bosses and being able to have some private space and that sort of thing.
Right.
Um, on the Sunday night, my phone did 2 rings and off and 2 rings and off. And I was waiting. I like ran to the phone. I was like, oh my God, that's Alf. Ran to the phone and it didn't ring again. And I tried to phone him and I still couldn't get through. It was still cut off. And it was like, why? And I had it in my head that because the paranoia was building. By this point, I hadn't slept since the Friday. I was so afraid. I knew nothing about the drugs deal. I didn't know whether he was safe or I'd heard from him once on the Saturday morning, but I didn't know what was going on. And I took that to be some sort of an alarm call. And something inside my head switched, and it was an experience which stuck with me for some time. It was quite traumatic. It took a while to get rid of. Because I had this image that if I went up to his apartment, I was going to find him dead in a pool of blood. And it just felt like this was the sign I'd been waiting for, that now was the time to go and do something. So I took the best weapon I could find, which I knew how to use, and it was like I stopped being quite human. I started thinking in angles and trajectories and stances and positions, and I was plotting in vectors and speeds, and it was so robotic, but I knew exactly how I was going to go and kill the captor. And so I climbed out of the fire escape, because there's someone outside my front door, climbed out the fire escape, shinnied up the outside of the building to Alfonso's apartment, climbed into the lobby outside his apartment and rang his doorbell. And I had sort of the exact calculation and everything. I wasn't like I was human, it was robotic. I just exactly the right place to stand for the length of my arm, for the angle I was going to have to swing at, and I knew I had one strike to kill this guy, and that if I didn't do it in one strike, then we were both dead. But if I could kill him with one strike, then at least I would get away, and if I could rescue Alf, then maybe we'd both get away. If he wasn't already dead, then one of us was going to die in the attempt to, someone was going to end up dead at the end of it. I was pretty damn sure of that. And so I rung the doorbell and I heard the footsteps, and I sort of charged up, ready for, sort of got my position ready to strike. And the door opened and it was Alf. And for a moment, I had to recalculate all of my movements because I was expecting to kill somebody. And this was not the person I was planning on killing. And Alf said it was the most frightening thing he had ever seen was my face at that moment. And it haunted him for a little while because he didn't recognize me, because he said I looked so different. It was the scariest part of the whole kidnapping, was that point where he said he looked at me and he saw I was going to kill.
Yeah.
And seeing that he was okay and sort of regaining, because it wasn't a madness, it wasn't like that rage that takes over. It was so cold, so calculating. And so anyway, he told me that things were under control and that he was going to be, said, get out of sight quickly, and that he would be in touch the next day, Monday. We'd go back to the office. Everything was going to be okay. Don't worry, it was under control. He just needed me to hide. And I was like, but the phone call. And he said it wasn't me. I didn't make a phone call.
Huh.
So anyway, I climbed back down the fire escape. Now, this is like by this point in time, I must have been up and down that fire escape 10 times, just checking on his door, because every so now and then I'd shinny up there just to make sure that I could hear him and that I could hear voices, that things sounded okay. The kidnappers had been into my room and talked to me, even though I didn't speak Spanish and they didn't speak English. They'd been in and checked on me. There was a lot to and fro in. This is over the course of days. So Monday morning comes, and at this point I'm thinking I'm going to get my relief, that I'm going to find out what's going on, that we're going to get to go to the office, and I'll get to see that Alf's safe. And I got a phone call from Alf saying things are not sorted. What they need me to do is to phone up the office and make an excuse as to why neither of us can go. We both need to be out of the office today. And so I phoned up and I said, both me and Alf are both sick. We went out on Friday night. We were eating bad food and we've been ill all weekend. We're not well. We can't come in today. I did the thing I was supposed to do. And then I climbed down the fire escape. I ran over to the office, went into the office, and I thought, I just needed to speak to him. I just needed to find out if he was okay, because his voice was wrong on the phone call. I felt nervous about it. So went to the office, phoned his apartment, got through no problem. It was only my apartment that couldn't make phone calls. So I could phone his apartment from the office, no problem. He answers the phone. And so I role-played being our boss. And I was saying that Alf had his laptop, and that if Alf was sick and he couldn't come into the office, that there was something so terribly important on his laptop that I, his boss, would come to the apartment and collect the laptop. I didn't know what I was going to do with that, but I just ran with this story. I thought I can get somebody to go to Alf's apartment and just make sure things are okay. And then Alf said to me, he says, hang on just 1 minute. And he went and I could hear him mumbling. And what he was doing was he was repeating my story to the kidnapper. And the kidnapper, who by this point was fairly convinced that Alf was going to become a drugs donkey, and that all the arrangements were being made that day to sort out, the equivalent of a contract. The agreements were all being sorted out, and the monies were going to be transacted, and the first deal was going to be struck up. And that was why we couldn't go into the office, was because we were being inducted that day into the drugs business. And so Alf saw this as a way to get away, and so he told the guy, the last thing we want is for the boss to come to the apartment and find you here. He says, let me just pop over to the office and I'll go and drop off my laptop and then we'll be fine. So he convinced this guy to leave him alone for a couple of hours while he just went over to the office, dropped off his laptop, sort of had a shower, cleaned up, and then later on that evening we'd all meet up and we'd actually go to a drugs mule party. Which was being held that night.
Jeez.
So the moment, so Alf said, wait there in the office. I'm coming to you with my laptop. I'll be there in 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, he turns up and the paranoia was real. The way that he was like looking over his shoulder and checking, he was like, can you see a white car? Can you see a white car? Oh, we're being followed by a white car. We need to get out of here. We can't talk in the office. We can't talk here. We need to go. And so we went to a little cafe where we felt safe, and he told me what was going on, and he said, we are in so much danger right now. He says, we need to leave the country and we need to leave. right now. And this is before he'd sort of told me about the drugs thing. It was like, but I knew we were in danger. It was like I'd known this through my very bones. I knew we were in mortal danger.
Yeah.
So when he said we need to leave the country, I was like, yep, fine, let's go.
Wow.
So we had to go back to our apartments to go and get passports and stuff because we'd left them there, and luggage and things. And we went to the bank and we withdrew all of our expenses cash that we had out there, and we went on the run. And I'm going to guess we must be near the end of the episode. So if we are, I'll tell you about being on the run the next time.
We're actually way past that. We're going to just have to split this one up into 2 later. So just keep going until we're done 2.
Okay. So the most bizarre thing, and this is, I would advise anybody against going on the run from a kidnapper with a gay guy, because as we went back to our apartments, and it was like, right, we just need to pack some essentials. We need to leave in a controlled manner so that the receptionists don't think there's anything odd, so that no one gets word. But we need as much, because I don't know, I took over at that point. It was like I was the one with the I knew about being hunted. You know, I was saying about how my whole childhood I'd been practicing for one day I would be hunted.
Right.
I had imaginary enemies as a child, and I'd always sort of had nightmares about being hunted, and I knew how to escape and all that stuff. So all these skills sort of came to the fore, and I took over, and I was saying we have to leave our apartments. We have to go back there, pack some suitcases. We'll tell them that our trip to Brazil, which was supposed to be starting the next week, was starting a little bit early. Say my rent was due. I said, so we'll go and pay the rent. We'll make sure that they don't think there's anything suspicious. We'll pay the rent. We'll tell them to book us a taxi to the airport. We're on our way to Brazil because the conference is starting a little bit early. We need to get over there to do some work. We'll get out. We need to get to the airport as fast as we can before the last plane to Brazil leaves. And we need the money, we need the passports, we need the plane tickets, and all the rest of it. And so I packed my stuff. Within 5 minutes, I had a bag packed and ready to go. And I went up to Alf's apartment, and he's there ironing his shirts. And I was like, "What are you doing? You madman! We've got to get out of here." And he was ironing his shirts and folding them. And he said to me, well, what happens if we're searched? I said, I don't care, just stuff them in your bag. He said, leave them behind, it doesn't matter. He says, I can't travel without clean clothes. I said, just put them in your fucking bag. It's like, and he's going, Sal, I'm gay, I don't travel with crushed clothes. Like, what?
Wow.
And it was like he was just absolutely adamant that it didn't matter. We may be on the run, but he was still traveling with polished shoes, ironed shirts, and a change of clothes for every day, and he was going to look smart while we traveled. Now, I mean, Alf's not an effeminate type of gay guy, but he was a very well-dressed kind of gay guy. And he was not letting that, some standards do not slip under any circumstances whatsoever. And this was one of those circumstances under which his standards did not slip. And I was going crazy. I was like pacing his apartment. And he was like, make yourself a coffee, calm down. I was like, oh, just look at her.
Jeez, yeah, well, I think I'd be panicking too. Cool
anyway,
customer.
we did. So he was more confident that nobody would come looking for us for a couple of hours than I was, of course. So he had reason to be more cool than me, but as far as I was concerned, we needed the longest head start we could possibly get.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'd be on the same page.
Yeah. And So we did. We got a taxi. Told them we wanted to go to the airport. We wanted the airline that was gonna take us to Brazil. But we asked the taxi driver to drop us off at a particular mall part way and said that we just needed to pick up some shopping. So that didn't look suspicious. And then at the shopping mall, we changed taxis and got on a different taxi and told that taxi driver to take us to, I can't remember the name of a resort, because I was saying to Alf, we need to go somewhere else. We can't go to the airport. Because for one thing, by this point, I realised that there were no outward bound planes at this point. We had missed the last plane to Brazil, and there were no outward bound planes to anywhere safe. We were only likely to get ourselves worse, like deeper into South America, and we needed to be heading to Europe. We had plane tickets to Amsterdam that we wanted to. We were going to see if we could just get the date changed on the plane tickets, but there was no planes to Amsterdam leaving for the rest of the day. So we did a couple of taxi swaps so that we would be harder to trace. And Alf told me that there was certain indications as to which hotel would be safest for us to stay in, and so we checked into a 5-star hotel next to a beach in a tourist resort, which was sort of an hour's drive away, sort of just past the airport, and under false names. It was like we booked in under the equivalent of Mr. and Mrs. John Smith. We went to the airport, and Alf bribed the airport into changing our tickets in such a way that we wouldn't appear on the passenger lists. And what he told the airport was that we were having an affair, and that the work that we'd been sent out to Venezuela had been done, and that what we wanted to do was to sneak off and have some private time together without either our bosses or our spouses finding out. And how much would it cost for us to be put on the next plane out of there with the plane tickets that we had, which were for some date 3 months off in the future? And it didn't cost a right lot of money. It was only something like, I think it was $70 each, $70 each. To have our plane tickets modified, which involved them writing a new date with a pencil on the plane ticket.
Wow.
And,
we are getting close to the end here, though, so...
Yeah. So we hid out in a hotel next to the beach. I sent an email to our bosses on a private VPN. The bosses in the UK saying, really sorry, but we're in dreadful danger. Do not send the police. Because I knew they'd see we were missing.
Yeah.
Do not call the police. Do not contact anybody. We're on the run. We're safe. Just give us our space. Just addressed it to the HR director. Now, what I didn't know was the company had a particular insurance policy, which meant that there were people that they used for helping extract. Yeah, exactly that, for extractions, because they always had employees being kidnapped and getting into trouble all around the world. They were that kind of company, and they sent they contacted the extraction people, and the extraction people said, leave it 48 hours. If you still haven't heard from them, we'll go and get them.
Wow.
48 hours later, they sent an extraction team to come and track us, but we were, they never found us. What they did find was the Venezuelan partners. One of the bosses decided to check in on us at 5 o'clock that evening, and we went on the run. It was 3 o'clock by the time we left Alfonso's apartment. 5 o'clock, the boss turned up and found that both our apartments had been ransacked. And so we hadn't had quite as much time as what Alfred thought, and so we were being chased at that point by numerous Venezuelan authorities, numerous UK authorities, the bad guys, and some other bad guys who were sent out to protect us from the bad guys who were actually trying to do us harm. And the Venezuelan government, because of the connections through our joint venture company, had connections with the government. There were people from government sent out to try and find us, but it was just the sheer paranoia behind it. I mean, if you want to disappear, especially back then, before like you had GPS on your phones and stuff,
Right.
if you wanted to disappear, you really could disappear. And we got back to the UK on the dodgy plane tickets, and eventually, yeah, we were questioned by MI6, like partly I think to find out what had gone on, and partly just to understand the situation and whether or not we needed protection. And it was
Right.
decided that we needed protection for 3 months. We were told not to work. Our bank accounts were frozen. We needed to leave our homes to make sure that there was no way we could be traced, because we were just in danger for the following 3 months.
Right. Wow.
And that set my career off on an entirely. Oh yeah, because we couldn't travel internationally then for a year afterwards either.
That
Um,
would change things, yeah, if it were
yeah,
based on moving around. Yeah.
yeah. So that was quite a life changer, and of course it
Wow.
led to me meeting the women who ran the chat lines, and I ended up going and being a chat line supervisor, helping them set up their business and doing the nighttime chat line supervision for them for a while, and ended up with me following a very strange career path, which is still strange to this day. So that's my Venezuelan story,
Wow.
the potted version. There's
Wow.
so much more to that.
Yeah, that's wow. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, and we are actually out of time, but so you ended at a very good spot there. So, wow.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't know what else to
Well,
say. I have had nothing like that happen in my life. And, maybe we'll end on that note, I guess, as we fly back and drop off our cargo.
cool.
All right.
Right.
I hope you guys all enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.